Welcome to today's PAWSCAST.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. Today we're continuing to talk about the red zone. As you may remember from our first PAWSCAST about the red zone is the period between the beginning of the semester and Thanksgiving, the fall semester, where people are at higher risk for being sexually assaulted. So today we're joined by Krystal, Rowan, LCPC, from Family Crisis Resource Center, Chris Lyons, who is an LMSW here at the CAPS office at campus, and Emily Llewellyn, who is an LGPC at the CAPS office here on campus too. So our focus today is to cover the aftermath of what happens after a sexual assault. In the previous Red Zone episode, we talked about the immediate aftermath, how to report, what happens in that process. So this time we're going to talk about what happens in the weeks and months after someone experiences that, and how we can all be support for survivors. So Krystal, what does it look like for someone after someone has experienced a sexual assault? Like, what's their next week, month, year going to look like?
So for a survivor, it can range all over the place. Mm-hmm. There's no right or wrong way to recover. It can range from the survivor may feel guilt, they may feel guilty, they may feel shame, they might feel denial. They think to themselves, well, it didn't happen. They might minimize, well, it only happened one time. They might have issues with boundaries after. They might not have any boundaries, or they might go the opposite end where they keep everyone at arm's length. They might have issues with trust or safety. They may isolate from their friends and family. They might have amnesia. Right after it happens, they might not remember what happens, or they might remember it in the wrong order. They may dissociate, so completely separate from their physical body.
Like they're floating on the ceiling or standing outside your body, looking back.
Yeah, or it might not feel real, so they might have, it might feel like a video game, or everything's really foggy. They might feel betrayed by their body. They might feel completely numb. They might have strong emotional reactions. They might not have any emotional reaction. And they might have different thoughts that run through their head. It could be self-blame. It could be, like we said, the denial.
Yeah, and I've talked to people who have experienced this, and a lot of them can be really concerned about, like, oh, people can tell. They can see it on me somehow. And that's not really true at all. It's just, we might notice that a person isn't acting like themselves, and that doesn't mean that someone's walking around with a scarlet red A on their chest. It's just really, like, you've gone through a trauma, and that's a big, significant thing. Yeah, absolutely. So Chris, does it look different for men? How does it look?
Trauma, a lot of times, we live in a society where there is a very, very masculine way of thinking, or perceived at least, and then there is everything else. So if we start from the beginning, sexual assault may be viewed as something that only happens to females. As men, we are thought to be able to protect ourselves, and nothing like that should be happening to us, should be. I always quote. The thing is, nobody's immune to it. Right? So with males specifically, if we're talking about that, the trauma response can be similar, and it can be very different. Krystal did a good job at highlighting that there's a variety, there's a scale. So what looks very common for men could look exactly what Krystal is saying, and there could be a very different way of approaching it. Men will often minimize, right? So when we look at it and there are things that are not supposed to be happening to us, you find the different ways of thinking about the event, right? So a man may say to himself, I don't think that was a sexual assault.
Yeah.
You know, it can't be a sexual assault if A, B, C. And what there really is just hiding the true emotion. So it can look very, very similar to sexual assaults encountered by women, and the separation has less to do with being male or female, but more with the person as a whole and who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've talked to men who have been sexually assaulted, and it took them years to come to terms with just that it was a sexual assault, because there's this stereotype in our society, a horrible stereotype that, you know, men want sex, and that if they choose not to have sex, like that's not a thing, like. And it's ridiculous stereotype, but that's what had really fed into their disbelief that it did happen to them. Like, oh, I must have wanted it.
Right.
Which, you know, from a woman's perspective, oh, I was asking for it. Like, those are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous.
There's a lot of destructive.
Yes.
There are a lot of destructive ways of thinking when it comes to sexual assault.
Yes.
And they're not always as out in the open as people think.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, Emily, how is someone's mental health affected when they experience a sexual assault?
I think in every way that mental health really can be affected,
Mhm.
that it typically is when you're experiencing things like shame, guilt, denial, minimizing. You're going, like, it's going to affect how you function within life.
Oh, yeah.
And also, you know, a lot of times when we've encountered students who've come through, whether this is something that's happened a while ago or it's very recent, there's a part of avoidance that comes in, and avoidance, just as a whole, is one of the things that perpetuates a lot of mental health distress, emotional distress, keeping it a secret. There's shame, there's guilt, they're all going to be woven together, kind of hidden in, and it leaks out. As much as people may try to run from it, it's going to come out in some capacities, and then they get frustrated to understand, why is it that I can't, you know, be alone in a room with somebody of the same gender who assaulted me, or why can't I, you know, walk around campus by myself, or why can't I go to, you know, the candle store anymore because I'm smelling these candles now, I'm having flashbacks, things like that. And so it's very all-encompassing of, it becomes isolating. They tend to pull away from people. They tend to not want to interact with certain groups of people because of associations or triggers that are coming just from who people are. So men, women, race, you know, sexual orientation, places where they're at, all of those things are kind of playing in, and people are really pulling back from everyone and going, no one is safe now. I'm safe nowhere, and I can't feel safe anymore. So I have to cope with it. And, you know, when we kind of glue, stick, craft paper our own coping skills, they don't always tend to be the most effective ones that we can use.
Right. We're looking at survival, not thriving and healing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes complete sense. Excuse me. So, Krystal, how can that affect someone's daily life?
Well, I think, like Emily said, that it can really affect even how they navigate the world. You know, what happens if they're at work and somebody walks in that looks similar to the perpetrator? Or, you know, what if, you know, if something happens where someone coming up from behind them is a trigger, just someone walking by can really affect somebody. It touches every aspect of somebody's life: friendships, family members, employment, schooling. hobbies, they may not enjoy the hobbies that they enjoyed before any longer.
Just a change in their daily activities from pretty much everything could be possible. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and I think just another thing with like living in a small town and being on a small campus, there is a higher chance of running into the perpetrator. There's a higher chance of running into perpetrators' friends or family. And that in and of itself, I have people who isolate because they don't even, and I'm sure this will come up at a later point, but like, let's say there's a protective order that somebody has out against a perpetrator. I've had students who've come in who've gone, I'm like, that's fine, they're respecting it. However, their friends don't have to. Their family doesn't have to. What if they tell everybody? What if they make it against me? What if they get on Yik Yak and start posting anonymously all of these things and are destroying my reputation? How do I handle that? Because I think that takes a part in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Emily and Chris, how can a sexual assault affect someone's academics?
A lot of times, when we look at academics or schooling in general, school is difficult by itself, right? Learning your craft, and it's hard enough on its own. So when you're navigating a trauma response or something that's happened to you, while trying to do that, we see academic performance decline, right? But one of the other ways, that you see trauma impact academic performance is you see like distraction happen, which can give you this illusion of it being a very, very productive thing. So you have a student who goes from a 3.2 GPA to a 3.9, right? Because they can't think about something, so all they're doing is studying and working and hitting the books.
Getting hyper-focused on academics.
Yes, yes. So then you can convince yourself, I'm doing okay. When really it's just you distracting from something negative that's happened to you. So you can see it at both sides of the spectrum, and neither one should be ignored.
Right, that makes sense.
You stole what I was going to say. So.
Oh, okay.
No, I was going to talk about that. Like, I often see students come in, and the work becomes the distraction of, and it's almost a way to prove to themselves that they're okay. If I'm doing well in school, if I'm getting my 4.0 this semester, if I have all A's, if I'm top of my class, nothing's wrong with me. I'm not traumatized, because could a traumatized person do this?
Right.
And it becomes very much a like walking students through it and being like, okay, but are you allowing yourself time to think and to feel? And often it's not, even when they don't have work, it's then, okay, well, I'm going to join this club and that club, and then even when I get home, when I get home, I'm going to scroll through TikTok for 4 hours before I go to sleep, and when I wake up, the first thing I reach for is my phone so that I can keep scrolling.
Yeah. And just basically keeping themselves so busy that they can't think. And you can only do that for so long. This is not a permanent coping mechanism that's going to work for your lifetime.
Yeah, what came to mind for me was sustainable. How sustainable is that?
Right.
Yeah, and it's really not, because after a few weeks of that, you really start getting tired, and a few months of that.
Then you have students coming in and they're saying, I don't understand why I'm so burned out. Why can I not stop? Why can I not turn it off?
Because it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and then you start digging and you looking for things, and you go, oh, well, there's this big thing here that you've not talked about with anybody. And then they're like, oh no, we don't
It's
go near
not
that. No. And they're
It's
like,
not.
we put that in the box, and tape it up and throw it into the corner. It doesn't exist. What are you talking about? I'm like, oh, I think it might though.
Yeah, that box is open, you just think it's closed. And that's what it is. Yeah, absolutely. So, Krystal, what can people do to heal from this? That's a big question, That's a big question.
Yeah, I might need some support for that.
That's fine.
There's a lot of things that people can do. Leaning on friends and family, making sure that you're getting that support when you need it, not isolating. I know it's really hard to do that, and it's easier said than done. If you, depending on your culture, is your culture okay with going and going to therapy? Is it maybe a pastor or some other sort of religious figure getting support that way? There's lots of different things. Sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. What was soothing and coping for you before is likely to be soothing and coping for you again.
That makes sense. Do you guys have anything to add?
I like the first couple of things that jump to mind is one, being able to recognize whose fault a sexual assault is, which is that it is not the person who was sexually assaulted's fault, that it was the perpetrator's fault. And it's so powerful when you have people and you're like, oh, they'll say like, oh, I should have fought back, or I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have been drinking, or I should have known, should. And I tell people, well, you're going to should yourself to death. Like, you can't, these shoulds are not things that are reality, though. That blame lies with the person who perpetrated. And walking through that. And the other thing is stopping yourself from being allowed to be held hostage by the shame that comes from it. And that's very broad because we do have cultures that have this more ingrained in shame of it is, the person who was sexually assaulted's fault. It makes them impure, or it makes them ineligible for certain things like marriage or a dowry or things like that. And we take those things into consideration, but to recognize that like that shame is what keeps you isolated. It's what holds you hostage. It's what keeps you away from people. And it's not comfortable and it's not easy, but it's important to walk through that and go, okay, I have to look at the shame because it's telling me something, and if I keep letting it keep me here, nothing's going to happen. It's going to stay the same, and I'm going to be miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also making sure that you're sharing your story with people who are safe, and who will reassure you, like, it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. It was 100% the perpetrator who did it, and you didn't ask for it. I've always said I should be, not that I do this, but I should be able to walk down Main Street drunk off my butt and not be sexually assaulted. I don't deserve to be sexually assaulted, and nobody does. Right. And I think people get that confused with the culture and the norms that our society puts out there.
Yeah, it's a confusing of what is a natural consequence versus This is like, what's a natural consequence versus what is somebody else's action. So if you are walking, let's say, drunk down the street,
I should get arrested, but
so you might get an alcohol citation. Yeah. Maybe you get really cold.
Maybe you
get really cold.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a really bad hangover that lasts for a couple of days. Those are natural consequences. Yes. Yeah, we expect that.
Yes.
Sexual assault is not a natural consequence. That's somebody else's choices.
That is a very good way to phrase it. Yes.
And as far as like clothing, like you said, like, wearing a skirt, you might get cold outside. That's a natural consequence of going outside in a skirt, not sexual assault.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. That's a really great point. So, there's a lot of different treatments available. What do you guys feel are the best treatments for people who have struggled through this?
That one's difficult. I feel like they're like each person is going to have a tendency to go towards a certain kind of treatment versus another. So you have things like EMDR, which is, I just forgot what EMDR stands for.
Desensitization. What's the R? Regulation?
Don't remember because I'm not trained in it, so that's why I'm like I can't remember what it is. But like things like EMDR, cognitive processing therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal. Like on a broad scale, looking for people who are trauma informed, I feel like is the best broad stroke that I can do.
Yes, I think that's
only because those counselors who may not be trauma informed, or mental health people who may not be trauma informed, might not understand certain aspects of it. Of like, why aren't you just going to the market and like, pushing people to like do things? It's like, well, I can't go to the market because when I walk in, the scent of, the flowers that are there right when I walk in the door hits me, and it takes me to a flashback. Or, there's men there and I can't go alone, but I can't find anybody else because I've isolated myself to go with me. And if you're not trauma informed, people might be like, that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, well, trauma doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for the brain, so.
Let's plug really quick. You do not have to be a therapist to be trauma informed.
That's true, yes.
The general public can be trauma informed, and we all should be. So that way it helps individuals in the community that may be in need.
Great.
Just had a
Good.
plug.
No, love that. Absolutely. Don't yeah.
And adding to that, just really quickly, a lot of communities offer the mental health first aid training for both adults and children.
Yes, and our community does too, and it's very helpful. Yeah.
It is. It's just like having first aid training for, somebody's having a heart attack in front of you. It's good to know what to do and how to handle that situation. Just like somebody's having a panic attack or is having a flashback or something like that. How do we handle that without immediately hitting our own internal panic button, which is what happens a lot of the time, both here on campus and in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So the focus would be trauma informed, looking for someone who is a counselor, even an educator, someone that they can talk to that has trauma informed background, and making sure that they're getting the help they need. And one of the things I always tell people, if you get into a therapy, like you named a whole bunch of the different types of therapy, and it's not working for you, maybe explore other options, because it is very individualized. Some people do really well with psychoanalysis. Some people do really well with CBT. It depends on the individual, and it's very individualized. Like some people can't take certain pills because it'll hurt them. Some people have to take those pills because they keep them alive. So it depends. Therapy is very much the same, and it's very individualized.
Even if we dial it back, we can look at it as a lot of people may lack baseline support. So something as simple as a support group.
Yes.
Where you can meet with, and I speak to my males with this one because sometimes it's intimidating to talk to your male friends about emotions. Just meeting with like-minded people, with people that have been through the same thing that you have, can be very, very beneficial. That might give you the push to step into the more intensive therapies that we were speaking about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. Yeah. So, what are the worst things an individual can do for their mental and physical health after experiencing a sexual assault? Now, I'm not trying to be judgy here. I'm just saying, what would really not be good for you?
Yeah, I think with this question is kind of what my mind went to, is what Emily was saying at the healing part. Not blaming yourself. You didn't. The only person to blame is the person who sexually assaulted you.
Yeah, blaming yourself and getting focused and stuck in that. Yeah.
This is one that's kind of a given, but like overuse of alcohol, drugs.
Yes.
Only in the sense that we talk about isolation and stuff. It's going to perpetuate avoidance. It's going to keep you away, and as we all know, when you kind of drink too much, or certain substances, you stop being able to catch certain social things, and you aren't as easily able to regulate behaviors.
Right.
And so sometimes we do things that in a sober mindset we might not necessarily do.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people, like, there's going to be that urge and there's going to be that want. And if you give into them, that is okay. We just can't live there. It can't be the only coping skill that we use. Yeah. Because if it's the only one, then we're going to run into more issues that are coming from excess substance use and things like that as well.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Suppressing the emotions are, how, like, you watch a movie and they're running from the bad guy, right? Maybe they get away the first movie. Second movie, the bad guy's back. And he's bigger and stronger this time. It's kind of like that. We can tuck things away, and I think you made reference to it. We can tuck things away for a long time.
You're talking like the Halloween sequels.
Yeah.
I was literally thinking, I was like Jason.
I didn't want to name drop that because the last one was a letdown. But,
Yeah.
we can hide things, and when we think about suppressing emotions, we think that they come back maybe in like a week or a month. No, sometimes people can do that for years, and then you haven't dealt with that, and probably at the worst time possible, it will resurface. And we are never sure what our reaction in that moment is going to be. So being able to acknowledge those emotions and bring them up and say, you know what, this happened to me. Maybe I need to talk to somebody or some people about this.
That makes sense. So, how can friends and families support people who are recovering from a sexual assault? What can we do to help the people that are hurting?
I feel like some of this is going to sound really repetitive, but believe people when they tell you.
I think that's important.
Thank them for telling you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's a huge thing, just to trust somebody else with that.
Yeah. Don't immediately start asking questions. Well, what were you wearing? What were you doing? Or why were you out with them?
Yeah.
Those questions, honestly, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of saying, I'm here for you. How can I help you? What are the best ways that I can support you right now? Even checking in. Are you talking to somebody about this? Here are the resources that I know, or, trying to just be there in the same way that you would if somebody, came up to you and told you they had cancer or something like that.
Yeah.
Of how do you support somebody who's going through something that is a tough time? And it's very similar, honestly.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. Like if someone says, in my family circle, if someone says I have this type of cancer, well, I'm Googling it. I'm learning about it. I'm learning about what treatment options are available because I want to make sure that I'm knowledgeable enough to be of support. Like I'm not able to prescribe treatment or anything, but I can say, well, this one has higher percentages of effectiveness than this one. And, you might want to talk to your doctor about that.
Right.
Yeah, or even things like, oh, let me get, here's a get well basket with some comforts and some things. I know you like going out to get coffee. Why don't we go get coffee together? Let me check in on you once a week. How are you feeling? Are things going okay? That kind of stuff. All the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes we get stuck in that morbid curiosity, like, ooh, what happened? Tell me everything that happened. And we don't need to know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't need to know that. It's something that if the person is willing to share, we can sit there and hold space for them and listen to what they have to say, but we don't need to probe to get that information. Yeah, absolutely.
I think too, respecting the person's options, whether or not they decide to report. Because sometimes we care about our friends and family so much and we want justice for them, but it's ultimately up to them if they want to report it or not. Encouraging, but respecting what they choose.
Yeah, in our previous podcast, we talked about the process of reporting, and it is very important to be respectful. Like, of course, we want everybody to report it, and we want everybody who is a perpetrator to be found and prosecuted and really hammer it home that this is not okay. But I don't want my friend to be hurt in the process if that's going to be hurtful to him or her. So, yeah, that's a really good point.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No,
That simple phrase, I will support you in any way that you need.
Yeah.
Can go a very, very long way because that communicates I'm not going to push, but I can be here.
Yeah.
If you do want to talk about it or need somebody to go with you or anything else, like I can be that person.
Yeah.
That simple phrase.
Yeah. And that's huge for people.
I was just going to say with not pushing people to demand their own justice, you're
Right.
giving them their power.
Mm-hmm.
Of they have been in a situation where their base human level trust with somebody has been violated, and that can make you feel very powerless, very helpless. And so allowing people to make those choices gives them their power back. It starts to reinstate some of their own bodily autonomy and stuff, and allow them to make the choice of, do I want to do this or do I not?
Right.
And respecting that those are their choices.
Yeah, I think respecting their own individual autonomy is super important. So, what type of resources are available on campus?
Us. So the CAP's office,
We're located right at the moment. We're located
in
in
Cumberland.
Cumberland Hall. Yeah.
But we will soon hopefully be moving. They said this winter, but nobody's holding their breath over that, into the new building with Brady Health, which will actually give us the opportunity to have you access both medical services and mental health services in the same
That will be
place.
hugely appropriate.
Yes, so excited. We also have the Title IX office, which, so if somebody is sexually assaulted on campus, this isn't like a student goes through sexual assault. It doesn't have to just be an on-campus one. It can also be off-campus, especially if it's perpetuated by another student. Another student is our perpetrator. That is very, like, you can go to Title IX and you can make an official report, and that puts them in university-based investigation for if they're allowed to remain at the university, if there will be consequences, how they are going to navigate having you feel safe on campus, if that perpetrator is going to be allowed to stay in some capacity. So I definitely encourage people to reach out to them. Brady Health is also a really good resource to go to if you're looking for some physical health support as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Krystal, what are the resources available to the community?
Sure. So I wrote down a couple different places because I wanted to make sure. I know we have students from kind of all over the tri-state area, so I tried to include a county. And of course, if there's students who are from other counties, I know we have students from all over the state, you can always still call us and we can do a quick search and provide you to your home county. So here in Allegheny County, it's my place of employment, which is Family Crisis Resource Center.
And they do a lot of stuff.
Yes.
It's not just sexual assault, like family crisis, so everything related to the family.
Yeah, if we deal with survivors of intimate partner violence, sexual assault, child abuse, stalking, you name it, and we have a lot of different services.
Yeah, and we had Taness come in and talk about domestic partner violence, so yeah, please check out that PAWSCAST.Tune.
So we have a 24-hour hotline, and it's 301-759-9244. And if you look us up online, we also have a text chat option, so someone can text us now. That's not monitored 24 hours. We also have a internet chat option as well. That one is also not monitored 24 hours. There's in Mineral County, West Virginia, there's the Family Crisis Center, and they also have a 24-hour telephone number. It's 1-800-698-1240. In Garrett County, we have the Dove Center, and their telephone number is 301-334-9000. That's also 24 hours. And then in Bedford County, Pennsylvania, we have Your Safe Haven. Their phone number is 800-555-5671, also 24 hours. And then also our local hospital, our forensic nurse examiners are fantastic. They provide the sexual assault forensic exams. They are free. And I like to throw in that you can also go in as a Jane or John Doe. So you don't have to attach your name to it initially. And if you change your mind, you can contact the forensic nurses and attach your name. So you can still get one, even if you don't want to use your name.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And we'll provide those in the credits after the video on the screen for you, so it's easily accessible. Those are great resources. Are there any other aspects that we missed that you guys would like to cover?
I will go ahead and just plug. We also have a 24/7 crisis line for Frostburg State students. So if the office is open, you can come in. We have 4 appointment slots in a day for a same-day crisis session. So you can come in, I think they're throughout the day. So we have 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon that people can come in and use, but we are also available 24/7 through crisis. If the office is closed, it's a holiday, it's a weekend, whatever, you call the non-emergency UPD number, which I believe is 301-687, I think it's 4222. Don't hold me to that. I think that's what it is.
I'll get the right
yes,
number.
I'll
put
make
it
sure.
down for you.
But you call them, the operator who you get in contact with gets a little bit of information, checks to make sure that you're safe, checks to see where you're at in the area in case we do have to send emergency services. But then they get your phone number, they contact the crisis counselor who calls you. So we are also available. That one, unfortunately, is just exclusive to Frostburg State students, though. But you talk to us, so it's not like somebody who doesn't work in the office. It is all of the therapists who are licensed that work there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I don't think so.
And this is one of those discussions where we hope nobody ever needs this.
Yes.
But if you do, please take heart. There are resources available. I just want to thank Krystal, Chris, and Emily for coming in to talk with us today and help us to understand what someone may be going through and how to help them. Thank you all for tuning in today, and if you have experienced a sexual assault, please seek help. And if you have a family or a friend who has experienced this, please do what you can to support them in their recovery. The SAFE office is always available. You can always stop by and talk to us, and we will do whatever we can to help you in the process. We are very willing to hold space, which means we sit and we will listen to you and hear what your struggles are, and if there is anything we can do to help, we would be happy to also. So thank you everybody for coming in today, and thank you for tuning in. I hope everybody has a good day.
Thank you for being a part of our PAWSCAST. This health and wellness podcast is brought to you by the Prevention Center and Peer Education Network at Frostburg State University. If you would like more information about our programs, visit us in Pullen Hall 109 or call us at 301-687-4761. Or you could also send us an email at safeoffice@frostburg.edu.